Hey, and welcome to How She Owns It, the Self-Leadership Edition video series. My name is Julie Agnew. I am your Flawsome AF mentor, success and self-leadership strategist, and I am ridiculously excited today to bring you a conversation that focuses on self-leadership through the lens of a powerhouse woman, Sara-Louise Goode. And this is our very first episode. So there is a mix of, for me, nerves and excitement, but I'm so excited to have this conversation because I feel like it's so important that as women, we share the things that we're going through, the good through the messy middle, all of the lessons, and all things self-leadership really, so that genuinely people don't feel alone or people actually can see themselves in other women that are perhaps spinning all the plates and looking like they've got it all together, but they are kind of walking through that messy middle part, but still bringing so much magic to the things that they do and the things that they share. So, welcome, Sarah. Super excited to have you.
Hi, I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you, Julie. I'm just equally as excited and probably equally as nervous as you. So
And I think that's really good. Like, my vision for this series is that it's just a really natural, honest, imperfect conversation where we're really going to shine a light on you and the incredible things that you do and lessons perhaps that have shaped your life that then can go on and help and impact other women's journeys as well. So, would you mind giving us a little bit of a background and sharing all things you before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of it?
yeah, fantastic. So I'm Sarah, I'm 47. I am a single mum and I'm also an emotional intelligence trainer and teen and midlife women mentor. People sometimes think that the teen and midlife women, what's that all about? It is because the work is very much the same. In teens, we are, encouraging women to step into the world, knowing their truth, knowing who they are, and not being crushed by the things they are inevitably going to face, especially as a woman. And for midlife women, it's almost it's teaching the same things in reverse or guiding the same things in reverse because most of us have grown up in that world where we have struggled with being able to own who we are and the world's telling us who we should be. And it's really about it's like it's bookending. It's like the learning and coming into the world and your independence, owning your truth and being who you are. And at the other end, it's learning to recoup that, learn to reconnect with who you are and unlearn all of the conditioning things that you've brought. So I do that and I go in, I do workshops for teens in schools and I do teacher training as well, emotional intelligence in the classroom training. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
I absolutely love that because I think you really have you've got an arc across the two types of women, because obviously young women coming through teens and then women who have lived a life and perhaps are only just becoming aware of patterns that maybe have been holding them back or navigating the way that they've lived their lives. And I love the fact that you're starting with teens as well, because what a world are we going to be living in? Perhaps I perhaps won't be alive to live in it, but where we're doing that work with teens, like what a life are they going to have in comparison to perhaps ourselves that have found it later on in life? I just think that's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing when you see a teenage girl really owning her truth for the first time and not apologizing for it, not worrying about how people perceive them, but just this is who I am. This is what I believe. And if you don't like it, that's okay.
Yeah. That's so good. And I've worked with a client. She was a colleague as well, but she came in as an administrator, moved into a self-employed role, went on to become a company director of her own company. And I think she was 25 when she launched her own business. And I looked at her and thought, oh my God, like you're incredible. And I thought she's had all that experience of having people that have been able to bring out those things in her and help her actually to see who she is the thing that actually is going to set her apart. And at one
Yeah.
point, she was so worried about the fact that maybe sharing her people wouldn't like her and she perhaps wouldn't get clients. And that was a really beautiful thing to see when she actually decided to trust herself and just be her. People really wanted to work with her, and her client list exploded. And that's how she was able to then go on and launch her own business. So I just think starting even earlier than that as well with teenagers, I just think like that's amazing. I'm like so exciting for the world.
It is really it's really powerful work. I love it. I do love it. It's my favorite part, but it's also they're so open to it as well because they haven't had like not they're not like us. They haven't had decades often of
Yeah.
people telling them who they should be, how they should behave, what role they're supposed to fulfill. You know, they haven't had all of that yet. So when you give them these concepts and the tools to be able to say that, they grab it and they run with it. And they're like, yeah, I get this, I love this, and this is how. And yeah, it's just, it really is, it is beautiful. I'm excited for, I mean, it's really easy at the moment to think the world is all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And I am a big believer that women leadership is a massive key to changing that, because we don't necessarily need more masculine power, strategy, control. We need that strength with the softness that women bring, the compassion, the being able to include people and nurture people and take care of people. That's not it. We've almost been shamed into believing that's a weakness
Yeah.
when it's really not. Like it's not a weakness. You cannot have, it's like that strength without any softness is just armor. That's, you know, strength without any softness, that's just armor. That's not letting the world in, and that's controlling everything you want. And the opposite way, where you have all the softness and no strength, is almost like internal collapse. Just, you know, but having both of those things, I think, has the power to change the world. And I'm not afraid to say it because I think that is what we need. It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we change the situation. Imagine for 1 second, everybody out there, imagine for 1 second if you had a powerful, truthful, compassionate woman in some of these leadership positions globally, and how that would change the landscape of the world that we live in. Because I think that's just, yeah, I think that's pretty incredible.
I think that's your Prime Minister campaign right there. Sarah for Prime
Yeah.
Minister, but I love that. And I think you're so right. I think we get so far away from who we are as humans, and it really is, it should be human hearts first. But I think with like wrapped in probably like an extreme level of courage and the strength as well. But like you say, the two have to go together really, and that's how you become as powerful, but also bringing it back to people and not,
Yeah.
everything else. So, what would you say then self-leadership actually means to you? And I know you've just shared some powerful things, but if you were going to expand on it any further, how would you describe sort of self-leadership and what it means to you?
Yeah, I think for me, it is the difference between, and there are lots of women who are really comfortable being quite loud and owning that and being out in the world and being very visible.
Yeah,
For me personally, it's more about sort of quiet confidence. It's that just knowing who I am.
yeah,
It's knowing myself enough that rather than being influenced by the world and by situations and other people, I'm now no longer influenced. It's not about me trying to control everything else. It's about me just not being influenced by everything else. It's about being truthful to who I am, I think. And I think, um, you know, when we really know who we are, and when we have that emotional literacy to understand why we behave the way we do, what choices we make and where they come from, that gives us much greater agency. It's like the bridge to real agency and choosing what it is you really want. from a place of really powerfully knowing yourself, listening to that inner voice, self-trust, as you like you spoke about before. It's that self-trust and integrity. And it's not, for me, it's not shouting about things, but it's just yeah, it's just I'm not seeking approval anymore.
And I think that's such a key thing. And I'm glad you sort of referenced approval, because I feel like many, I suppose not just women really, people in general, but from my perspective, and I think from yourself, because we work with women predominantly, and I've found it myself, like I'm a recovering people pleaser. So I think I want to put my superhero cape on, swoop in, just make everything better for everybody. And with that comes the external validation, doesn't it? And the approval as well, because you want to be liked by everybody and you want to think you're doing a good job, maybe, or that people do think you're doing a good job. And I think how many choices or decisions have been influenced by other people in the wrong way, maybe because we weren't bold enough or courageous enough or trusted ourselves enough to think, okay, I'm going to ask for your opinion, and they give it, and then you think, do you know what, it's that inner knowing that you just said, where you say, do you know what, I've had that opinion, now I've listened to it, but I know this is the right thing for me, regardless of whether it goes right or it goes wrong. I'm going to take that leap, I'm going to take that step. And it's okay, isn't it, to say to somebody, thanks so much for your opinion, but this time I'm going to do what I feel is right for me. And I think you're so right. It is that inner knowing of knowing also when to take on board somebody else's opinion and approval and validation, but value your own over all of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important because everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. And the world and his dog has an opinion about what you should do and how you should do it. But there's not a single person on the planet who is walking through your life, caring for your children, paying your bills, running your business, doing your job. And what they have is just an opinion. They don't have experience of being you. They don't have that. And so, but we're so quick to give away our agency sometimes because we look at somebody else's opinion and think, oh, well, they know more than me or they're more qualified or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And we can be quite quick. So that self-trust is so important. And it's knowing who you are and why you make the decisions. And you said about the people pleasing, because that I think there's so many of us who are like recovering people pleasers, because it is, it's one of those patterns. And I think because girls are very much taught to be perfect, they're taught to seek perfection and approval rather than take risks and fail and just keep going. But they're taught that from quite a young age, and it's very subtly done, and it's so ingrained. I find myself still coming up with some of these sayings, that put girls in a box.
Yeah.
And it's so ingrained because it's been going on for so long. But I think that, we really, we're so going back, like the people pleasing part is so insidious because we think that it's being kind and we think that it's being considerate. But a lot of it, not always, but a lot of it is just self-abandonment. It's just
Yeah.
abandoning who we are as people and giving over our, like say, our agency to people that don't actually know our situation. And it's really hard to step out of that. It really is a difficult. I know so many people that go through that. It's so common, and yeah, and it's not a weakness. I mean, like really powerful women that run multinational companies that still have these feelings of, you know, when somebody else says they're doubting themselves. And that's what it's about. It's about not abandoning yourself and not doubting yourself.
Yeah, I really love the way you said, and that's a bit of a light bulb for me as you said it actually was, nobody has experience of being you. And I think it's a practice, isn't it? Because particularly midlife women, like you say, it's a case that we've got to unlearn all of these things. And that is, it can be tough and it can be messy and it is a practice and it's not easy. And it's it's an ongoing thing that never really ends in my experience. But I really love when you said there, like I just said, nobody has experience of being you. So I think in those moments where you thinking, oh gosh, you're doubting yourself and thinking about maybe taking somebody else's advice or what they're saying, perhaps over what you've already maybe thought, and you're second guessing and everything else. It's maybe just coming back to that and thinking, right, okay, I know myself better than anybody else, and nobody has experience of being me more than I do. So I really, really love that. And I think
Yeah.
that's just such a, even just that little insight and just that little question to yourself, of just that little nudge to yourself in the moments where you find yourself going back into the same patterns. That's a really powerful way of pulling yourself back out of it.
Yeah, and I think the point I was trying to make, I sort of went off on a bit of a tangent, is that knowing yourself and knowing where that pattern comes from is a really powerful thing. It's where the emotional literacy and the being able to look at all of your situations and all your experiences without any shame, without any judgment, and just looking, okay, so where does this come from? What is it I am trying, what need am I trying to have met by falling into that pattern? What part of myself? And I think when we know ourselves that deeply, we build that trust. We build that inner trust, because that's how you trust other people, right? You get to learn what they do in different situations. And
Yeah.
you're looking at how they stick with their integrity and how, where they get knocked off course. And it's that consistency. And when you begin to trust yourself and you start consistently making decisions that are in line with who you really are, not who you've been told to be, that makes a massive difference. That builds that self-trust. And yeah, once your relationship with yourself changes, your relationship with everyone else changes, because you're giving them permission. How you treat yourself is how you give other people permission to treat you.
100%. And it's, we train them as well, don't we? So like I say to people, and I say this, like everything in our own lives starts and ends with us. So that's where literally we have to start. And that's how we then get to explode that out into our relationships, who we bring into our businesses, our careers, all the experiences that we're having. So, would you say that exactly all of the things that you've just shared is really how you stay rooted in who you really are, I guess, during the messy times and the uncertainty, self-doubt, when perhaps life is life in, how
Yeah.
would you say you stay rooted in who you are?
So there's lots of different things. There's lots of different tools I have. I'm a big nature lover, animal lover. I get a lot of comfort from that. Um, I like being around animals because animals do not care. They do not care what you have, what you did, what you said. You spend time with animals and it is just that pure love and affection. And they are just grateful for the time that you are there, because your presence for them is enough.
Yeah.
That's all they want, is your presence. And I think we forget that. We forget that our presence is enough. So animals remind me of that, that just our presence, just being there, that's enough. We don't have to perform to earn the right to be in the room, or our presence is enough.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And I think, yeah, a lot of that stuff that I talked about is remembering. It's remembering who I am. It's going back and looking at things with real curiosity. When things get really messy, I think it's about looking at the mess as data rather than drama. It's like, what is it telling me? It's being really kind to myself and asking questions like, if I've made a mistake and I've messed up and I've got something wrong, it's like, okay, what do I, you know, what was I needing at that point that I kind of took a misstep? What was it like? Where was I going out offline? And look at it as data. It's just data. And don't get involved in the drama and the returning to kind of beating ourselves up and shaming ourselves for things, because I think we're very quick to do that as soon as we make mistakes. So yeah, definitely all of those things help me stay quite sort of rooted. And also my daughter, she watches, I mean, she's 16 now, but she's the reason I started all of this work really, and seeing how she was absorbing not what I was telling her, but she was absorbing how I treated myself as a blueprint for what's acceptable for her. And that's where it really started changing for me, because that people pleasing, um, that, yeah, that pattern was showing up with her. And I think that's where it comes back to that as well. I'm leaving a legacy for her. What legacy is it I want her to
That's,
pick up?
yeah. And that, I know that you've got a really powerful story to share, if you wouldn't mind sharing it with everybody. And I'd love you to share that if you're open to doing it, but also because I feel like, and I know you've shared with me that that kind of has shaped how you lead yourself and everything else, really. So if you don't mind sharing that, I think like you've got so.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so like a lot of women, I had a pretty traumatic childhood. There was some abuse from my stepfather. My mother was very volatile, which meant I couldn't really talk to her about what was going on. I couldn't own that. So I just really internalized it. My father moved away when I was 8 years old. He moved to Africa and was working out there. So my lifeline disappeared as well. He kind of went overseas, and I'd see him once every 3 months instead of every weekend, and we were very close. Um, so that really set the seeds of what I felt I deserved. Because as a child, you think it must be something that you're doing. Like it must be. And that's a pattern all kids have. It must be something that I'm doing. Because we're taught that, aren't we? Good things, you have to do good things, and you have to be a good person for good things to happen, which means equally the opposite is true. For bad things to happen, you must have done something bad. So I think children very much internalize that. It led to a lot of ill health and a lot of very poor choices in my teens. And long story, I mean, I had a young adulthood very much in quite a challenging relationship, quite controlling relationship, chosen from what I thought I deserved. And I was very, very ill. And I ended up in in intensive care. And I was on full life support. So medication I was taking for Crohn's disease and ankylosing spondylitis just not destroyed my immune system. It's a bit dramatic, but it lowered it to the point I had no immunity. And I was on full life support for nearly a month, in hospital for about 5 altogether. When I came out of that, it was a real struggle to get back to health, and they wanted to put me back on a very similar medication. One day, my daughter comes in the door, and she's only like 6.5, 7 at this point. And the sharps bin for the injections that I would have to start taking again was sat on the side of the kitchen, and she just burst into tears, and she was like, "Mummy, please don't go back on that." And I was like, "Okay." And she was just, it was like the emotional floodgates had opened. So we sat down and we had a really long chat, and she was like, she thought that when I was in intensive care, she thought that I had died. She thought that I died, and she thought that nobody wanted to tell her.
Oh,
And she didn't ask because she didn't want to upset anyone. People were coming home and they were telling her that, "Oh no, Mummy's fine, she's okay." It's like, but she knew I was not fine, because she knew that if I was fine, I would be speaking to her and I would be talking to her on the phone. And so she just assumed that the worst thing had happened. But she didn't want to ask because she didn't want to upset anyone. She did 2 things. She abandoned her truth. She knew her truth, even at that age. She knew that I was not okay. And she picked up a pattern from me of, I don't want to upset anyone. So she stuck with that feeling, and she went through that feeling because she did not want to upset anyone. And I think that's a lot of what we do. We go through our lives not trying to upset anyone and abandoning ourselves in the process. That was really the point where I realised that she was picking up all of my behaviour, my people pleasing, my abandoning my own needs to make other people more comfortable. And she was, that was becoming the blueprint for her. So that was I literally just decided there after that conversation, I have to change this. I have to change it. And that was, I have to find a better way. And that was really the beginning of me looking, where did my behavior come from? That's what she's picked up from me. Where did I get that from? And there was a whole lot of recovery. There was a lot of physical. I mean, I couldn't walk. I had brain damage when I first came out of ICU. So there was a lot going on, but that was really the beginning of that journey. And it wasn't so much what happened, it was that conversation that I had with her and what legacy was I leaving for her, living my life the way that I had.
What a catalyst for change. And whilst it perhaps didn't feel like it, I guess, in the moment for her, super courageous of her to actually share with you exactly what she was thinking and feeling once she'd got perhaps all of the tears out and everything else. And from my perspective looking in, very courageous for you as well to actually listen, but not only listen, actually be courageous enough to think, right, what have I been doing? What that has impacted that? And what do I need to change? But then not only doing that, but actually doing it. Because I think
Mm.
so many people can look at things, but actually putting that into practice and walking the talk is sometimes where things get missed.
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think that's true. And I think the trouble is, even now, I would say I am much better at being able to very quickly identify where other people are in those challenging situations and what they can do to help themselves. It's much harder when you're in your own mess. And I'm sure you probably have this with every client. It's very easy to pick out and use your knowledge to help someone else. It's much harder to apply that to yourself. And because you kind of need somebody who is you to point out your blind spots, right? You do, because you don't, and that's really, I think that's all it is. It's just kind of, I think it's why vulnerability and softness is so important, because if we're not open and we're not owning where we're making mistakes and how we have resolved them, then no one's learning from each other. That's our wisdom. That's our, as women, there's a deep wisdom in everyone, but I think especially for me, that's my experience. So I'm a woman. I'm going to just own that we have a deeply powerful wisdom, and when we can be vulnerable and share and actually bring that out, people learn, people change, people connect, and that's why I think we need more of that. We need and it comes back to that self-leadership, right? So it's being who you are, being all woman, but being powerful and owning it and not being afraid of it.
yeah, and I think it's also for me as well, and a lot of things that I try and share with other people, because you mentioned before, we can easily slip back into that place of bashing ourselves up, of beating ourselves up. And I think we're so good at beating ourselves up for all the things that we get wrong, all the things that we fuck up. We're
Yeah,
not so good at building ourselves up for all the things that we're good at, because it's become normal, hasn't it? It's big-headed to celebrate yourself or shout yourself out, or you're getting too big for your boots if you're cheering yourself on. But it's, in my experience and my mind, it's so important for us to be our own cheerleaders. And I think in part of all of that as well, it's giving ourselves the compassion to really accept that when we fuck up, we've done it from a place of we've we've acted from the experience that we've got, the skills that we have in that moment, and who we are in that moment. And as we go through it, it's the lessons that come from it. It's we learn, don't we? And then we get to apply that then to the next situation or the next experience. And it's almost taking the fail and using that as data, as you say, rather than making it mean something about us and then slipping into that place of you're not good enough. you can't do this. You know, you're always messing things up or whatever it might be. It's amplifying that inner cheerleader and that self-compassion as well, louder and
Yeah.
higher than the one that's beating ourselves up, and
Yeah.
taking radical responsibility and ownership.
That's the reason that is so important. What you've said about the celebrating and cheerleading and pushing ourselves on is our brains choose what is significant based on emotional attachment. So we have so much data is coming in all of the time, billions and billions of little packets of data. How our brain chooses what is important for you and how it chooses what is the significance is by emotional matching. So it will choose something that you think of as important, an emotion that you think of as important. So if we do not celebrate, if we are not attaching an emotion to those successes, if we are not actually being in that moment and owning it and shouting about it and cheerleading ourselves on, then our brain doesn't see it as significant. Instead, it sees the things we beat ourselves up for as significant, and that's what keeps us down. So that is, it's so, so important. And I think it's also uniquely a woman thing in many cases. I mean, not universally, but because we aren't supposed to be, you know, traditionally in the way we're conditioned. We're not supposed to be loud and out there and owning it. Whereas, like, you know, the boys do it, they do a good job, they win at sports. It's like everyone's on the sidelines cheering. It's like, yay, go, go, go. It doesn't happen so much for women because we're supposed to be demure and acceptable and you know, loving and kind and quiet and all of those things. And we are all of those things, but that doesn't mean that we aren't everything else as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Literally got chills as you were saying that. I don't know if you can see that. Literally.
It's like, it is that.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you could think about, well, I know that you do, thinking about other women now, what, and I think this ties in really nicely, like it's a really good segue into the next kind of question that I had. What do you want other women to know about owning it?
You never have to earn your worth. You are, like your presence, that's enough. Like you don't have to earn it. You are enough. And there is something uniquely powerful just about being you. You're allowed to be powerful and tender. They're not mutually exclusive. It's like, you know, they are two extremes of the same thing, and you get to choose where you sit on that scale. And that scale gets to move depending on where you are in life, what you're dealing with at the time. You know, there is no, you know, there's no rule book. It's what is needed presently in that moment. I don't know. What else is there? What else do I want women to do not um do not be ashamed. Like making mistakes, messing things up and getting things wrong, it's not shameful. It's just lessons. Just treat everything as a lesson and an experience, the good and the bad, right? Because the good stuff is just an experience as well. But treat everything as an experience and not that, like you said before, um, if we treat it as an experience and we don't use it as a stick to like beat ourselves with, because we are so good at that. And
Yeah.
honestly, the rest of the world is going to do that enough. You do not have to like you do not have to be standing at the front leading the way, right? There's enough people in the world who are going to try and bring you down. You deserve to have somebody on your side, and that person needs to be you. The only person who you are going to have a relationship with for your entire life is you. You forgive other people for doing really arsehole things all of the time. So why are you not doing that for yourself? I think that's probably we forgive other people all the time for being complete arses. Just apply some of that to you.
I love that. And you're so, so right. It's like an exercise I do with some of my clients, and it's a fun one, but also I think it's quite a powerful one. Is looking at yourself through your best friend's eyes or the person that loves you the most, because you are so right. The way that we speak to our spouses, our children, our friends, when perhaps they're going through a tough time or they've effed up or whatever it is, we're so much kinder to them than we are to ourselves when we're going through that experience as well. And I think it's making almost making ourselves feel safe to make a mistake, knowing that if we when we do, it's not if, because we're human, right? So we're always going to make mistakes and it isn't a bad thing, but it's telling ourselves that when we do, we've still going to be there for ourselves. We've still got ourselves. It will learn. And I think quite a lot of people don't make mistakes on purpose. There are people out there that do it, but for the most part, people don't do it on purpose. And I think it's remembering that for ourselves when we're in that moment is, you did it with the experience that you had at the time, who you were at the time, the skills that you had at the time, perhaps with the best of intentions. It just landed not the way you'd expected. It didn't go the way that you'd expected. And then we get to own it. And if we choose, learn from it, but then apply that to
Yeah.
our experience going forward.
I do so it's almost the exact same thing. I tell people, a lot of the women that I work with and the teens, I call it the best friends test.
Yeah,
If you would not say it to your best friend, you should not be saying it to yourself. And if you would say it to your best friend because you know that they need to hear it, how would you say it in a way that was empowering and encouraging instead of diminishing and hurtful?
definitely.
And that's the difference.
Oh my God, I could literally chat to you for
I know. We could go on for hours, hours and hours.
this was going to be a 20-minute conversation, but we're already over half an hour. But I feel like it's been so, so good. So much insight, so many things that you've shared. I've sat here and thought, oh my God, that's so true. Or that's really going to help me as I move forward. So thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for being open and sharing everything that you've shared. I think the biggest takeaway for me, and I'm sure people listening will have their own, but I think it is what you said super early on in the conversation, is that nobody has the experience of being you. Like that's gonna stay in my heart. It's just like one of those things that just was like, bam, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Everyone has an opinion. But yeah, thank you. It's been a real pleasure and I could talk to you for hours, but I need to go walk my dogs.
hey, super quickly before we finish, for anybody that has really enjoyed this conversation and they've loved everything that you've said, where do you hang out? Where can they come and find you? I will put everything in the show notes. I think that's the terminology, so that people can click on. But if somebody's listening and they're thinking, oh, I just want to go and follow her here, or where's she hanging out, tell them where they can find you.
LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok and LinkedIn. I'm really terrible at this because I don't know the handles or what, but on LinkedIn, I'm Sara-Louise Goode. TikTok, I think I'm Sara Good Mentor, something like that. You'll find me, like variations of my name. You'll find me. Not on Facebook or Instagram, but I am on LinkedIn and I'm on TikTok. I don't put much on TikTok. That depends how much time my daughter has, if I'm honest, because that's very much her domain.
Perfect. Well, I'll put the links and everything to your actual profiles. People will be able to come and find you there. Thank you so much for having an open, honest, real, just vulnerable, relaxed conversation. This was everything I could have hoped for and just more. It's been an absolute pleasure and I've loved it.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been epic. It's been
Very
amazing.
well.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this as much as Sarah and I have. And I will pop all of the links in the show notes. Go and find her. She's incredible. And keep your eyes peeled for the next episode that will be dropping very, very soon.